Hey everyone, I am wanting to start being more outspoken and vocal just about some of the things the Lord shows me and is teaching me, and things that I'm getting to experience of Him through my daily walk with Him. I felt like it's something He asked me to do at the beginning of the year, so I'm going to step out in faith and do those things. So, I wanted to share an experience I had this last month, the end of February through the beginning of March. I got to go to Israel, and it was an amazing experience. I recommend everybody to go when that door opens. You should totally go. Even if you don't have the finances, it's worth it. It can change your life. So anyways, one of the experiences I had, I just feel like I'm meant to share with you guys. It was so interesting because I just feel like sometimes the Lord allows you to experience like certain things throughout the day that kind of illustrate or express about His character and His nature. And I experienced this whole series of events. And then at the end, the Lord kind of wrapped it all together about who He is and what He wanted me to know about Him and what He wants everyone to know about Him. So towards the end of our trip, we got to go to a place called Shiloh. And Shiloh is where the Ark of the Covenant was for 369 years. And that's where you might have heard the story about Hannah, who was barren, and she came and just cried out for the Lord, and Eli prophesied that she would have a child, and so she had Samuel, the prophet Samuel, and that all happened at Shiloh. So before the trip started, I just had felt like the Lord was like, I'm gonna meet you at Shiloh, I'm gonna speak to you. So I was like really excited to go to Shiloh, and that day there was a storm in the forecast. It was supposed to have hail and wind and rain and all these things, and I'm thinking, how are you going to meet me at Shiloh in the middle of a storm? But I was like, you know what, like he said he's going to meet me. So we get to Shiloh and we start ascending the hill, and it is pouring down rain. It is freezing cold, and it was almost as if the higher we went, the more dramatic the storm got. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, this is like totally not like what I pictured. And maybe I missed the Lord. And even as we got higher, the winds just like even our umbrellas were literally crippling, not just blowing inside out. They were crippling because the winds were so high. And we went and we watched like a quick little video about the area. We didn't even really get to walk around the site at all because we were just focused on getting up and then getting back down. And anyways, on my way down, I was like, wait a second. I was like, Lord, we didn't even get time to like really like hear you or spend time with you or anything. You said you were going to meet me. And he reminded me, he's like, I did meet you. And I was like, you did. And he reminded me that January 1st, I had an encounter with the Lord. You can read it on my blog. But he gave me a specific verse that day for this year. And it is Isaiah 59:19. And it says, from the west to the lands of the rising sun, the glory and the name of Yahweh will be held in highest reverence, for He will break in as a flooding, rushing river, driven on by the breath of Yahweh. Or by, in other versions it says, by the winds of the Lord. The Lord will drive the streams by the wind of His breath. And the Lord was like, that was me. I was in the wind. I was in the storm. And I was like, wow, like, okay, interesting. And so after we go down Shiloh, we have set up for Jeeps to go on a Jeep tour. And of course it had just rained and it was all muddy and everything. So the Jeep tour was totally fun, like going through all the different turns with the mud, and it was so fun. The drivers were having like the best time. But they were in shock because of the rushing streams coming down the mountain. They were just like, we've never seen this before. We've lived here for 40 years. We've never seen water like this. There's never been water running down that creek or crevice, like, and now it's gushing with water. And we would literally pull over, the drivers would pull over so that they could take pictures of the water coming down this hill, this mountain, into this valley. So it was things they've never seen before. And the Lord was like, see, like, they are seeing things they've never experienced, and they are fearing my name. And I am the one who takes the wind. By the wind of his breath, he drives the streams out. And so I was literally seeing it before my eyes. And I was like, wow, like, this is so cool. Like, all right. So then the story continues. After we have the Jeep tour, we are driving into Galilee, the Galilee area, and we have a Jesus boat tour. So you pretty much take a boat out onto the Sea of Galilee and worship and pray and kind of just take in the environment. And so we have a appointment to go on this Jesus boat tour, but of course, again, it is raining and it is cold. And we're on, and we were just kind of joking, like, I guess if you're gonna go out, you know, onto the Sea of Galilee, you might as well do it like Jesus did in the middle of the storm. And so we went out there, and it was raining and windy, and I was sitting there, and it was so interesting. I can't explain it other than it felt like the wind that was coming, I could just feel this rush of like love kind of wrapping itself around me. And then as the rain came, I could just feel the Lord like washing my heart. That might sound odd to some people, but I was experiencing the presence of the Lord in the middle of this storm. It wasn't too big of a storm, but it was definitely wet and cold and windy. And so anyways, as I'm experiencing this, I just hear the Lord say to me, Jesus is saying, like, I'm the God who's present. I'm the God who's present. I'm the God who's present. He just says it to me over and over again. And that was my experience on the Sea of Galilee. So that next morning, I wake up and I'm like trying to process the day before, which looked nothing like any of us would plan for or would want to plan for. So I'm kind of just like, what happened? Like, what happened there? And the Lord just starts speaking to me. I asked him this question because our tour guide, Sean, had mentioned how most of the miracles that Jesus performed were around Galilee. So I think there was 33 recorded miracles of Jesus, and like 27 of them, I believe, were around the Galilee area. And I said, Jesus, like, why were so many of your miracles here and not other places? And he said to me that it was her humility that opened up the space for him to do those miracles. And he's told me to turn to ISIAH 57. And this is where he starts to tie it all together. The two very different days. One, or parts of the day. One was at the top of this mountain, which was a symbol of the Ark of the Covenant, which was like his holiness, his presence. And then the next was the end of the day, which was down in the Sea of Galilee on a boat in a storm. And this scripture literally pulls them together. And I just thought, it blew my mind, really. It says, ISIAH 57 verse 15, For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. For I will not contend forever, nor will I always be angry, for the spirit would grow faint within me, and the breath of life that I made. Because of the iniquity and of his unjust gain, I was angry. I struck him, I hid my face and was angry. But he went on backsliding in the way of his own heart. I have seen his ways, but I will heal him. I will lead him and restore comfort to him and his mourners, creating the fruit of his lips. Peace, peace to the far and to the near, says the Lord, and I will heal him. But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up mire and dirt, and there is no peace, says my God, for the wicked. So, just within these verses, the Lord tells us that he's holy, his name is holy, and he dwells in the high and the holy place. But he also, and it says he inhabits eternity. So where does God dwell? The high and holy place. And literally his home is eternity. But then at the same time, he says, but I also dwell with the lowly and the contrite in spirit. And he goes into just his heart in that, like, sin was appalling so much that it made him angry and he hid his face. But at the same time, he said, I have to do something about this. Like, I see everything about him, and there's no way that man will change. He just continues to backslide. And so he himself says, I will go and heal him. I will go and restore him. And I thought that was so beautiful because he, like I had mentioned, before he showed me this passage, he was like, it was the humility in Galilee where he was able to heal all these people and encounter all these people, and all these people got to see who he was. And because he dwells with them, that's where he dwells. He dwells in the high place, but he also dwells in the low place. And I just thought that was, I just thought it was beautiful. I think it was beautiful that he is both those things. At one point I was processing the mountain, and the Lord spoke to me about the storm and all that kind of stuff. And the Lord was like, Alyssa, what goes on around my throne? And if you read in Revelations, it talks about, like, all around his throne are the living creatures and the burning incense and all this stuff. But it says there's rumblings and thunder and lightning. There's literally a storm going around his throne, right? But before John had the revelation and saw the throne, he was given an invitation. Jesus said to John, come up here. He was given this invitation to go and experience God before his throne. And I felt like the Lord was just saying, hey, there is an invitation for you, and there is an invitation for all people to come up. Come up here, come up this mountain, come and experience my holiness. Like, I have opened up myself that you may know my holiness. And in the Old Testament, when Moses would go up the hill, the people of Israel were like, had this fear of God, not a holy fear, but a terrorizing fear of God because of how powerful and mighty he was. They would just say, Moses, you go, like, we'll stay down here. You go, you just hear from God and bring back the message to us. And so Moses was the in-between, but God had given them an invitation to come and experience him, and they preferred somebody else to do it for them. And I believe the same invitation is for us, that we are meant to encounter God as holy and to know his holiness. And Jesus even said, like, be holy as I am holy. There is this beautiful invitation. It's not a place of condemnation or a place of, like, I don't know, like a religious idea of be perfect. No, it's be holy. And as we experience God's holiness, we get to be transformed into his holiness. We have to ascend the hill. We have to go up this mountain. And then, so there's the holy side of God, but then there's the side of him that dwells with us in the middle of that storm and in the middle of where we're at, our brokenness. So there's two parts of our relationship. One, to ascend and to pursue holiness and his holiness and know God as holy and encounter relationship with God as the holy God. And then also the God who literally came down from that holy hill and put on flesh. Jesus Christ came and dwelled with people in the midst of their brokenness because he understood they need healing and restoration. And our healing comes through Jesus Christ. So there's this both and with who God is. And we have to know both of those things. We can't just sit in our mess. Just sit in our mess. Also, we need to invite the Lord into our mess. He is more than willing to come and bring healing. Sometimes we just want to sit and wallow. But God's invitation for us is he's offered us healing in that place. So anyways, those are just some of my thoughts. And it was a really amazing, beautiful experience to get to see God in that way. I had mentioned that earlier that week we would do little devotionals. We were assigned devotionals for that morning. And so my morning was, we were going to the rampart wall where like the guards would go around the city on the wall to see who's coming and to defend the wall or to defend the city from the wall. There was like a place where you can like shoot arrows through it. It was really cool. But anyways, they're called watchmen on the wall. And their job was to look out and see. And anyways, my message was just pulling different scriptures was that like sometimes we have to watch for the Lord's coming. We have to keep our eyes open for God coming to us and be ready to open up that gate when he comes in. And how sometimes we think God should come a certain way and in a certain form. And there's times when God comes in a form that doesn't register with what we think he should be. And so we miss God completely. And so anyways, that was my message. And so it was just funny because on the day of Shiloh, I had this idea that God was going to meet me in a certain way. I was going to encounter him in a certain way. And really he came in a totally different approach. Like he came in a storm. Like he came in the wind, he came in the rain, he came in the cold to just say, this is who I am. And if my heart wasn't open to listening to his spirit, I could have missed him. I could have thought it was something totally different. I could have thought the day was just ruined. I could have blamed it on the enemy. I could have done all these things, but it was God who came in a storm. And so I would just encourage you that as you take these two things, the holiness of God and the God who dwells with us and is present with us where we're at, to be open to letting God reveal himself to you in however he decides to reveal himself to you. And so I just bless you guys with just more encounters with the Lord, more encounters with his heart, to know his voice, to go deeper in relationship, to just really get rid of anything that holds you back from him, because he is so worth pursuing and running after. He's so worth opening up your heart to. He's trustworthy. He's so good. And he's actually really a lot of fun. And so anyways, I hope y'all have a great day. Bye.